everyone, welcome back. I am your host, Dr. Steve, and this is Know Your Rights. Today we're actually talking about Second Amendment audits with three people by the name of David, Todd, and Philip. But before I go any further, I want everyone to understand why I feel the importance to highlight what these guys are doing in protecting your rights to just be able to take pictures from a public space, a public sidewalk, a public easement, the street. Because police and government has become so oppressive, and it's like they're not even held accountable in most cases, which is what part of the problem is. So the reason I want to bring this to the forefront is if any of you remember the case of the Bundy family out in Oregon. They were cattle ranchers, and apparently some of their cattle had stumbled upon some federal land that's, it's just a bunch of weeds and grass that grow out. There's nothing going on. And the cattle happened to stumble over there and eat some of the grass, and they were ordered to pay, over $1 million in grazing fees, and then they were fined. And then when they refused to pay the fines, here's the heavy hand of the federal government. They came in, tried to seize their property, tried to seize their cattle. They took them to trial, and guess what? Some of these guys are still in jail. They were indicted simply because their cattle happened to eat some grass on federal property, which, by the way, we own that property, folks. Federal property belongs to the people, not to the government. Does everybody not understand that we are the government? See, this is why my importance of understanding the vision of the founders holds so much precedent. Because if you look at the founding fathers, okay, what made them great men is that they knew the one thing that all great men should know, that they didn't know everything. They knew they were going to make mistakes, but they made sure that they left a way to correct those mistakes if they made them. They didn't look at themselves as leaders. They wanted a government of citizens, not royalty. A government of listeners, not lecturers. A government that could change and not stand still. I want everybody to understand something. The president is not an elected king. Government officials are not the king's guards. They are supposed to be the servants of the people. And unless we hold them accountable and we actually get back to common sense within government and law enforcement, we're just going to continue down the slippery slope. And I guarantee you, if you think it's bad now, if we let it continue, you're not going to like it. So anyway, a bombshell of an email came out that was forwarded to the Department of Justice by one of the agents by the name of Larry Wooten. He was the lead investigator in the entire Bundy case. And apparently he was let go because he wasn't playing ball with the rest of the kids. He was doing a fair and just investigation. Here are just a couple of the things that he's brought to the forefront, okay, that is probably going to get these guys acquitted and their charges dropped, which I hope to God that it happens. This is just a few claims, folks, because there's a mountain of them. And I will actually, in the heading of the first segment of the show, I'm going to post a bunch of links to news-related stories so you can actually read the entire email of the things that he wrote. But this is a good man, okay? This is a guy that honestly believed in what he was doing. He was going to have an investigation that was going to be fair and impartial and let the evidence lead it where it's supposed to be. Unlike these other agents that just simply ignored the actual evidence so that they could just arrest some people and take their land and take their property. Unacceptable. So anyway, here's just a few of the things that this agent, the lead investigator in the Bundy case, Larry Wooten, said to the Department of Justice. That his superiors, the people that were up above him, they failed to disclose evidence that would absolutely exonerate the Bundys. They failed to disclose it. They constantly mocked the Bundy family in public with, amongst the other instigators of the government that are supposed to be protecting the citizen. One particular agent actually bragged, and this is not my words, folks. This is from the lead investigator. This is what he came up with. Bragged about one of the Bundy sons on how he roughed him up and that he had pieces of gravel in his face when he was done with him. That should be shocking and disturbing to you. And if it's not, then may God have mercy on your soul. You should be absolutely livid that they're making comments like that after they set these people up in the first place. He also claimed that a guy by the name of Dan Love, who was the agent that was in charge, intentionally ignored direction from the U.S. attorney and his superiors. Okay? And his superiors. Now get this. Why did he do this? Because he wanted to command the most intrusive, oppressive, large-scale, and militaristic trespass cattle impound possible. That should scare the shit out of you. I'm going to say it again. He ignored the U.S. attorney and his superiors so he could order and command the most intrusive, oppressive, large-scale, and militaristic trespass cattle impound possible. Ignored the law. Ignored his superiors that told him what to do because he was going to go in there and play Rambo. Yeah, it upsets me. This is why, okay, I support these guys out here. Well, most of them. There's a few out there, folks, and I don't know who they are. I'll try to come up with some names, but I don't feel the need to have to do that. There are some of these auditors I do not support. I can't support them because I honestly believe they're not trying to affect change. Okay, they're not trying to bring a problem to the forefront. They just want to be assholes so they can get YouTube hits on their channel. Okay, and I will not support people like that. The reason I'm supporting people like Todd and Philip and David and several others, we're going to be talking about in some of the future shows, a guy by the name of Texas Sheepdog and a guy by the name of Johnny 5-0, because all these guys have a kind of a different style, but I support these guys. So anyway, this is why it's so important to hold public officials and government accountable for their actions. Because when they get led astray and they're not even operating under the guidance of the law or their superiors, we've got a problem in this country. Now I don't see anybody out there marching for the Bundys. I don't see the uproar. Hopefully after this has happened, there should be a huge outcry for major changes within the federal government. And I know I've gotten this in the past that, people say, well, you're anti-government. No, I'm not anti-government. I believe that government has a purpose. Their purpose is to protect life, liberty, and property. That's the primary goal of the federal government. I just want the federal government to be as small as possible. Because when government gets too big, guess what? They get out of control. They're not manageable anymore at that point. That's why the founders wanted a very small federal government, so the people could keep them in check. It's like we got the lunatics that are guarding the asylum here. I find this amazing when I watch some of these videos of clear police misconduct. Okay, and I joke about this, but it's not funny. That, we investigated ourselves and found ourselves to have no wrongdoing. Investigate yourselves. Yeah, that works out real well most of the time. I'm coming up on the break, folks. When I come back, we're going to continue a little bit more of the Bundy story, and then I'm going to move on to David, because this is why we have to continue to uphold our rights, because of what's about to happen to David in this next segment. I'm Dr. Steve. I'll be back in a minute.